it's Father Vogel. We continue our series on St. Francis de Sales' Introduction to the Devout Life. We are in part 4 of his book, looking at temptations and how to properly deal with them. In this chapter, we now look at how we should resist not only the great temptations, the difficult ones, but also even the very small temptations. He points out the truth that we can all realize is that the small temptations are the more frequent, much more so than the great ones. It says, just as the great temptations surpass the small in quality, so the small surpass the great very much in number. Hence, the victory over the small is comparable to that over the great. So it's just as important for us to grow in being able to overcome the small temptations as it is the great ones, because the small ones are so much more frequent, and they're the ones we're going to deal with on a daily basis much more often. He uses a wonderful example to illustrate this. He says, wolves and bears are obviously more dangerous than flies, but they are less annoying and do not try our patience so much. So that's very true. I mean, most days we don't have to deal with wolves and bears attacking us, though we know that if those would attack us, they can be very, very dangerous, and we must be protected from them. But more so every day, the annoying flies and bugs that come at us. Even though they're not as dangerous as those large beasts, yet daily they're the ones that try our patience much more because they're just much more frequent. And so he applies this to a number of different possible temptations. He says it's easy to refrain from murder, but it is difficult to refrain from little outbursts of anger, for which opportunities arise at every moment. It is easy for a man or a woman to refrain from adultery, but it is not easy to refrain from amorous glances, from giving or receiving flirtatious love. It is very easy not to steal the goods of others, but difficult to refrain from envy and covetousness. It is easy not to wish the death of another, but difficult never to wish him harm. It is easy never to slander a man, but difficult never to despise him. So, he points out that, the large sins, the big temptations that we may have, are oftentimes easier to resist. We're not apt to go murder somebody, or we note that, if I say this is going to be a big lie or slander. But it's oftentimes those interior temptations that we may not be as easily, we may be more easily persuaded to follow rather than to work against, because they're just more frequent and they seem to be so small that is it really worth having to fight against this? But yes, certainly, indeed it is. So he gives some more examples: little temptations to anger, suspicion, jealousy, envy, flirtation, vanity, duplicity, affectation, deceit, unchaste thoughts. These are the trials which even the most devout and resolute must constantly face. Therefore, Philothea, we have to prepare ourselves for this battle with great care and diligence. So that's going to be the content of most of our daily battle against sin, is against all of these little temptations that come at us. And so in the coming chapter, he's going to look specifically of how we resist those smaller temptations. Be sure that, he concludes, for all our victories over these little enemies, as many precious stones will be set in the crown of glory, which God prepares for us in heaven. God bless.